and I apologize in advance. Dr. Adam Travis was not able to join today. I'm going to do my very best to share what information we have, and then also, feel free to reach out to myself or to the lab as a resource for how testing should be done. Certainly, we're going to guide that in the event of an outbreak, and we're going to have someone on the incident management team who is scheduling testing, making sure everybody meets their testing goals, who is receiving the results of those tests and documenting those in EMERS so that we're able to track any information that we need. Also, that our trade partners may ask as documentation for our response efforts. So we'll go ahead and get started. So USDA has a great website, documents that contain specific recommendations by NVSL to detect avian influenza viruses. During peacetime, we will often run Newcastle disease with our AI samples just as surveillance. But I will tell you that in an outbreak, that is not necessarily going to be something that we're going to, add into to the test. We may just be running the AI. And so, but the sample collections are fairly identical. So this is a sample collection slide. So honestly, all of our poultry, as far as chickens, we are looking for oropharyngeal swabs. So you'll swab the oral cavity, the choanal cleft, and try to get back into the oropharyngeal area. Tracheal swabs are best if you obtain samples from fresh carcasses. So not limiting yourself to the upper airway on a deceased bird, but going all the way back into the lower airway. This is a picture of a duck. This is a great reference looking at anatomy in ducks or waterfowl. We prefer cloacal swabs. And it is important when you're collecting those samples and identifying those samples that you label them correctly. We do get some interesting labeling here at the lab. So you want to target your sample collection from birds, and this is during surveillance. This is during, peacetime. Anytime that you suspect a disease or looking for a disease, you're always going to go with recent mortalities and sick birds. And you want to target birds next to sick or dead birds. If you don't have a significant number of sick or dead birds available, you want to target healthier birds close to them. You want to avoid cotton or calcium alginate swabs, avoid swabs with wooden handles, and avoid leaving swabs or other collection devices in the tube. So just mash that swab up against the side of the tube and roll it around to get the fluid out, the media. But we prefer the polyester rayon nylon swabs. So BHI is the recommended viral transport media for avian influenza, and that is something that hopefully you have some on hand. We do keep some here for our staff to test for NPIP, and then obviously in an outbreak situation, we may order some more to have on hand. I'm not so worried about which ones have antibiotics and which ones don't. It's kind of what's available. So we will sometimes have 3 mLs, and we'll sometimes have the 5.5 mLs. 3 mLs, you can sample up to 5 to 6 birds for avian species, and the 5.5 mLs, you can do up to 11 birds. We try to tell people to stick to 5 in the 3 mL, but if you are in a pinch. And then this is the sample collection guide for gallinaceous poultry, chickens, turkeys, pheasants, and quail. And you want to do the tracheal or oropharyngeal. You can do a cloacal swab. Again, if you do that, you don't want to put them in the same tube. You want to have a set of oropharyngeal swabs, and then you want to have a set of cloacal swabs. So the 11 bird swab pool is only valid for AI testing of the tracheal or pharyngeal swabs from gallinaceous poultry and must be in 5.5 mLs of BHI. So for foreign animal disease investigations, we do a minimum of 2 11-bird swab pools per barn, and that's the requirement. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out if we need to clarify any information around that slide, but it's available to you to review. Again, swab samples may be pooled by species, premises. You want to use the same sampling route. Again, no tracheal or pharyngeal or cloacal swabs together. Pool your mortality, sick birds, and healthy birds separately. And this is probably more applicable on a larger backyard facility or property where people may be commingling waterfowl and chickens. We do see that pretty frequently. Not necessarily so much for our commercial friends. And then specimen transfer and storage. So you want to maintain a cold chain for all samples. So hopefully if you're taking samples in a surveillance area or a control zone, you are getting them to the lab really quickly. And so it should be a pretty brief trip, but make sure that they're held on an ice pack starting immediately following collection all the way to the lab. And please store them in an upright position. They are stable in BHI for up to 96 hours. Again, hopefully, if we're in an emergency situation, you're going to be here faster than that. If they've been frozen, you need to keep them frozen until you get them to the lab. Don't ever put them in a regular standard refrigerator freezer unit. Here's a sample of the cord submission form. And so you can see here, this is something that we would provide to you. We would update the incident name, but we would ask for the company, the premise ID number, the farm name. We want as much detailed information as we can. The account number is really important so that we'll know which company or which person has submitted the sample. The reasons for submission is very important. So surveillance movement or sick bird testing. Let's see, I'm sorry, hang on a minute. Look at my notes here. So USDA does not pay for movement testing. They will pay for sick bird testing. And Whitney, can you help me out? Surveillance testing is also covered by USDA, correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
It's the movement piece that is going to be billed back to the client. So that is how we know to bill back to you or to forward the cost of sample testing on as part of our cooperative agreement with the federal government. So surveillance and sick bird testing is covered under that indemnity type process, and then back for our laboratory, and then movement testing is billed back to the client. So duplicate samples, we will, if a company is having their veterinarian collect samples and we suspect this is it, we will work with you to help determine if we need to collect duplicate samples to submit to NBSL. And then obviously they're used to your production class, the total number of birds on the premises, and then test requested. Tennessee doesn't have a lot of turkeys, but on occasion we'll have some. And then you want to list your species. You can see there, this piece on the right, we typically put barcodes there and correlate those with the tube. Here's an example of a submission form. And again, we'll the lab will help provide those to you so that you can fill those out and just send them back in. So a regular work day in peacetime, sample drop-off ends at 11 for same-day results. Excuse me. So today, if you needed same-day results, we would ask that you be here by 11 o'clock, or the lab would ask that you be here by 11 o'clock. If we're in a situation where we suspect disease, or there's an emergency, or we need to, do some type of, surveillance testing. We're going to extend our hours, and we're probably going to run 2 shifts. And so we're going to, extend that cutoff to 2 p.m. or that has been our routine historically. We would have you call the lab once you arrive outside and let us know you're here. We have in the past had a mailbox set up where you can pull up if you look to your left in an outbreak, and there are boot covers and different types of PPE as well as submission samples if that's something that you don't have available. But again, you may want to call the lab when you arrive, and if you're coming off of a control zone or something like that, then it's possible that someone may come to the truck to greet you and make sure that you give samples to someone who's clean so that you don't have to come into the building. If you come into Ellington Agriculture Center from Trousdale, you're going to pull in and take a left, and it's going to be the first left going up the circle. And this is the side of the building that you should see once you pull into that drive and come down towards the necropsy dock, which is here. You'll enter these doors if you're coming into the building, but again, you'll call this number during office hours for sample drop-off. So that is the end of our webinar presentation. And so I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's anyone on our federal incident management team, other members of the state incident management team who have questions or comments, and also see if anybody has any questions. So no, Dr. Krause, our Tennessee area veterinarian in charge, was going to be on the road today and had joined part of the time via phone. I don't see him now. Dr. Krause, if you're on, do you have any questions or comment? I don't see him. Okay, well, this concludes our presentation. We're going to go back and add this information onto our TDA Animal Health website. We'll try to get an email out with that specific location as soon as we get that posted. I'm going to go back and edit some of the slides where I've seen a few errors, and then also make some additions with some other information. If you haven't thought of any questions now, but you're looking through this material later and you have questions, please reach out to us. If you are working on biosecurity plans and need assistance, please feel free to call. Anything that you see in here that you have questions about that you need to know more, or you want more details, we'll be glad to talk through any of this with you, provide you more resources. We may not have all the answers, but certainly we can help find them. Yeah, and if you would email your questions to animal.health@tn.gov. And I don't really know how to label those except maybe to say HPAI webinar questions. And we'll get those distributed to myself and Dr. Smart, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. I really appreciate everybody joining. I've been very pleased to see the number of participants. And fingers crossed that we don't have to implement any of this information this year. But I think biosecurity is a good first step, and just appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you all. Have a good day.